Our next headliners are four blokes in search of a Southside plot. Take four crime writers, ask the audience to choose the victim and a murder weapon, and before your eyes, they each take turns to write a brand new crime story. Gordon Brown, Neil Broadfoot, Douglas Skelton and Mark Leggett put their professional reputations on the line with unpredictable and hilarious results. The joy is no two performances are ever the same. If you'd like more information, go to www.fourblokessearching.com.
Hi there, my name's Gordon Brown and welcome along to Four Blokes in Search of a Plot. Now, before I introduce the other authors who you can see on the screen, just give you a little idea of what's going to happen, or maybe not going to happen as the case may be. As we proceed through the evening, we are going to try and write a crime story live, in front of your eyes, without a safety net, and with the aid of nothing other than a computer and our imagination. To do this, we need the audience to supply us with a protagonist, a weapon, and someone in the audience is going to have to choose which of the four of us starts off the story. And the way it works is one of us will write a few hundred words on whatever has come out, protagonist, weapon, we make the story up. They will then stop, read what they've done, and then we have to choose another author to keep going for the rest of the session. In between, rather than three people sit there and stare at the screen and say nothing while someone writes, the other three will answer questions that come from the audience. Any questions about anything at all, well, just about anything. So that's how the evening will progress. But first of all, we have a special introduction to make, and I need to pass you to Mr. Douglas Skelton to do that.
Yes, thank you very much, Gordon. As this is not live, we won't be doing it exactly the way that Gordon has described it, but that is generally the thrust of it. There is one very important part of the team that you have to meet, and that is the tea cozy of inspiration. Now, normally what we do with this is that when each author is writing his section of the story, he wears this. But because of the situation, we're all in various parts of the country, so we can't, pass it across as it would be to Gordon. So I actually have possession of the tea cozy, so we will use this tonight as the audience, essentially. So what we've got is, here's something we did before the show. We have a whole lot of suggestions of murder weapons that we got in from the old interweb, from people who we appealed to, and the names or professions of protagonists. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose these now. These are the names of the protagonists. So in they go into the tea cozy of inspiration. Like that, and give it a little sugar about.
Hey, one sugar's enough.
Is it? Well, I've given it 3.
All right, that's too many.
Is it?
Just
Okay.
watch your side.
UEFA recommend 2 maximum.
Okay, well, there we are. I gave it 3 because that's the way I roll.
Oh,
Okay, are we ready? The protagonist that I have drawn is Imelda Marcos.
Oh, for sake.
Okay.
Well,
Right, so I'll take them out.
we'll be sure to use her.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Should save that for later. And put in the murder weapon. There we are. Giving it
Fingers crossed, everybody.
2 sugars. Here we go. Here we go. What will it be? What will it be? And it is poisoned ice cubes.
Oh.
Aye, okay.
So our protagonist is Imelda Marcos. The murder weapon is poisoned ice cubes. And the first author to begin the story will be...
Douglas, just before you do,
Yep.
it would be useful if we introduce ourselves to the audience.
Yes, of course.
So just before Douglas
Whoever
draws
he
who's
is.
going to type first, let's start with Mr. Leggett.
Hello, I'm Mark Leggett, writer, editor, of author of 3 books, some of which are available in shops. The last time I was in a shop, which I think was about 5 years ago. according to when the plague is over. And that's about it. You'll probably learn more about us as this hour goes on, more than you'd want to know, probably.
Mr.
Mr.
Broadfoot.
Gordon Brown, Mr. Morgan Cry, I should say.
Okay, I'll go next. Okay, my name's Gordon Brown, but I am also known as Morgan Cry, which is currently my name somewhere along the lines. And I have lost count, 8 books. And 31 Bones is a crime thriller set in Spain, is out by Polygon. And I am also on the board and was there right at the start of Bloody Scotland. Mr. Broadfoot.
So it's you I've got to blame for all these freaking hangovers that I've had. I'm Neil Broadfoot, the author of 6 novels now, coming up to 7 when I submit at the end of this month. The latest series is based in Stirling. The latest book, which is out in paperback, although nobody can buy it from a shop in April, is that one. Once I said no to the Daily Mail twice. I feel like they should phone me again so I could tell them to go away for a 3rd time. And that's basically me. And unfortunately, I also know the reprobate below me, the last person to introduce himself and the holder of the tea cozy this evening, Mr. Douglas Skelton.
Well, that's me, and yet in my screen I'm above you, as it should be. I am Douglas Skelton, and I have written about 22 books.
Just stop, for Christ's sake.
But who's counting?
That's what the Amazon reviews say, Mark.
They're split between non-fiction and fiction. I would hold one up the way that Neil and Gordon or Morgan did, Gordon Morgan, which is like saying, hello in German. But I can't, as you can see, I'm surrounded by boxes. I am actually in the process of moving house as we record this, so I'm very sorry about that. My latest book is what's it called again?
The blood is still, Douglas.
The blood is still that came out last year, around about this time last year. Okay.
You can tell this is going to go well when the authors can't even remember their own books.
Oh,
I'm just looking at Douglas thinking, he's either moving houses, that's a very well planned burglary.
Yes. Actually, it's not Douglas's house.
Listen, you're talking about remembering the books. I wouldn't even remember my name if it wasn't written down below me here.
That's true, yes.
Okay. Shall I choose the first name to begin this story with the protagonist, Imelda Marcos, and the murder weapon poisoned ice cubes?
Fine. Who's it going to be?
And the first author is... Mark.
Oh, you bastard.
Right,
hold on.
So Mark will now go on silence, and
Yep.
the 3 of us will answer questions as submitted.
That's the other
What are you
thing.
doing?
That's the other thing we should explain. Is that when the authors are writing, they will don a hat,
Yes.
and then they'll mute themselves. Mark.
I'd just like to say back from Iraq, in nomine Patri, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti.
And when they finish, the hat will come off, and that's the sign that they're ready to read
Make
what they have written.
God have mercy on all of
Right,
us.
I'm going dark.
Okay.
Right.
Quick.
So-
now that he's gone, it's time for me to tell you that I've only put Mark's name, and it's 4 sheets of paper with Mark's name on it. So we're all...
See, he's going to do the rest of the show, and we're off to the pub.
Yes.
The only flaw in that is there are no pubs open. It was a good plan when we had it. Right. So
I'm
questions.
going to shut you lot up when I'm trying to write, okay? So if you're going to communicate to me, it's going to have to be, say, by osmosis. Right. So get going.
So we asked some questions in advance, and we said, so first question I've got here is, and this is appropriate, what do we most miss about live events? Other than doing Zoom for the last year, there have been no live events. What do we most miss about them? And that came from, who wrote that? Elizabeth McDade.
So what do we miss most other than live events?
No, what do we miss most about live events?
Well, about live events, okay. Well, the fact that they're live, I think, is a very obvious question, because if we were doing this live, we would be getting instant feedback from the audience, you know, mostly telling us to get off, go away, get out their sight. You know, Neil would be dodging the old tomatoes like that.
True.
So I do kind of miss the instant feedback that you get with audiences, and doing it digitally is fabulous, but it's not as good as actually being there and seeing the white of their eyes.
Yes. Do you know, funnily, I'm going to answer the opposite. Do you know what I don't miss? Right? The bit I don't miss is the 2 minutes before you go on stage, right? I've done lots of presentations in lots of places over the years, and I never used to get nervous. See, the older I get, I should just walk on, and I kind of think, right, it's gone well the last umpty times. You know that flying thing, you've flown that often, you get to the point where you think, one more plane, and that might just be the wrong one to get on. I'm now doing the same when I walk on stage. This will be the one that doesn't work. That's not a good way to think.
Yeah. Well, we've never had any issues before, and I'm only half your age, Gordon.
That's true.
Yeah. What about you, Neil? What do you miss about live events?
I think
Apart from the free tomatoes.
what you said is, I miss getting my 5 a day when I'm dodging the fruit and veg, but I think I miss the people. I joked at the start of this when Gordon talked about Bloody Scotland, but you know, crime festivals, I once heard it described as crime writing festivals are like going to a works party with people you like working with. And that's what it is. And it's, you know, we do a lot of Zoom calls, apart from you, Douglas, obviously I exempt you from that. But, you know, we do a lot of Zoom calls, and it's good, but it's not the same as seeing your mates in the pub, going and watching Gordon gonna crap himself before he goes on stage, and then having a laugh about it after. And it's that immediacy of, you know, meeting people, seeing my pals, the basic things of, as corny as it is, giving my pals a hug when I see them and saying, hiya, how you doing? That's what I miss about it, and the immediate interaction between you and, you know, the readers who have been good enough to give all their time and their money to come out and see you and talk about something that you've written. Yeah. And I miss that about it.
Yeah.
I think I also miss, from a reader's point of view, is actually just meeting the readers, because it's not so much about being on stage or in front of them. It's the fact that, unlike a lot of other live events where you go to see someone, you see them on the stage or you see them do what they're doing, and that's it. There is no other interaction. Whereas with the live festivals, most of the time you get to meet the author, and the author gets to meet the readers. And that I enjoy. Until they tell you your book's a load of rubbish, and then I don't like it at all. But other than that, I quite like it.
You must be used to that. You must be used to that.
Well, my standard answer is, you're not actually reading one of my books. I believe that's by Douglas Skelton. That usually works quite well.
Which will also work, because Douglas won't remember if he's written the book or not.
That's
true. You can blame anything on him.
That's very true. I mean, going back to what Neil said, and by the way, he has not been imbibing in the pub or in the virtual pub when he came here. If anything goes wrong with his sound, it's because he's having a wee issue with his broadband connection over there in the Far East. But there was the time that Gordon, before he went on time, did have a lavatorial accident, but we don't like to talk about that too much.
That's true,
because it was a bit of a shame, really.
Yes, I know. It's one of those things you try and forget, and people drag it up again and again and again.
I know.
I know.
Don't you just hate that when that happens?
I tell you, the other thing I love about live events as well is the unpredictability, because I get the chance to go to see people that I wouldn't normally get to go and see. So if there's a lot, like, take Bloody Scotland at the weekend, you get to see so many people that you wouldn't. I know this sounds bad. I don't mean wouldn't choose to go and see, but because there's such a selection, you go and see people that you might not even have heard of. And that's sometimes, I've found some of the best books I've got out of just bumping into people or seeing someone doing something on stage. And I thought, I've got to go and get that. That's often where I found a lot of good books.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Because, especially with Bloody Scotland, because it's so concentrated and because everybody is milling around with each other in the bar after an event or whatever, you do pick up by word of mouth, oh, that book's good or that book's good, and then you stumble into things that you wouldn't otherwise find. I mean, as an example, down in Bristol, I made in a personal event, I made one of the closest friends I've got, a guy called Derek Farrell, purely because we were standing at the bar together, fighting for the attention of the barmaid as it happens, but that doesn't matter. You know, and we got talking about, oh, isn't this terrible waiting? All right, I write this, I write that. I picked up his work, you know, and that's what I miss about crime festivals, is that chance to just meet random people, you know, and develop friendships from them.
Yeah, Bristol.
Unfortunately, the flip side of that is I do get to meet people like Douglas, and then,
Yeah.
because it was Bristol at which I met Douglas, and a lifetime enmity was born.
Yeah. Bristol.
Okay, so another
Excuse
question.
me.
Oh, sorry, on you go, Neil.
No, it's fine. I'll embarrass him with that later. Please go on.
So another question we've got here. What is your writing routine? Cameron Bland's asked the question, do you have a writing routine?
Well, my writing routine is generally, I come in here at the moment. This is my office. And I do everything that I can but write. That does seem to be my routine at the moment. And you know, I'll rearrange the dust in the desk. I'll do whatever I can. I'll go onto social media, becoming enraged by social media more and more these days. And eventually, when I've done everything that I can possibly do, I'll maybe try and string some words together. And that is my routine. And that's no joke. That is actually true.
I've got two writing routines. I've got a lockdown writing routine and a non-lockdown writing routine. And the reason I say that is not this lockdown, but the first one, the one last year. What we were on lockdown 3 or 6, I can't remember where we were at. Anyway, I wanted to do something and I thought, I don't want to just get into the habit of getting up late. I want to actually, so I started to get up early in the morning, write 2,000 words, and then put it away and do that for about 5 days. And then on the 6th day or 7th day, read what I had, edit it a bit and keep going. The only thing I didn't actually plan on was getting up at 5 in the morning, which I didn't mean to do, but I kept waking up and I thought, well, I'm awake, I'll go and do this. So by 7:30, I'd exercised, written 2,000 words, practiced a little bit on Duolingo and Spanish, and more or less my day was done. So I then spent the rest of the day going, it was like Spike Milligan in Q9. I would spend the rest of the day going, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do now? And that's, whereas normally I try to do 2,000 words a day. I've been sticking to that rule as long as I possibly can for every book. And I try and do it in consecutive days as much as possible, just because if I slow down, I get to a grinding stop. Whereas if I force myself through that, it might not be the best thing I've ever written, but the good thing is I can go back and edit it. So I tend to do that. And I'm much better in the morning than the night. I'm not very good at writing at night.
Don't you just hate a show off 2,000 words a day?
It could be the same word. As long as the word count says, as long as the word count says 2,000. I tell you what, you can fool yourself as well. When I rarely do research in between, but sometimes you look something up, and instead of trying to go back with screens, I'll just copy and paste and stick it in the document for a wee bit, just to leave it there. And then I forget I've put it there, and it might be 400 words, and I go, woohoo, I've written 400 words more than I thought. And then I go, no, I didn't.
Hang on till I just take a note of this, you know. Gordon Brown, better at it in the morning than in the evening.
Yes, I have to ask my wife about that one. Oh, and we notice that Mr. Leggett...
Covers off for Mr. Leggett.
It is. Right, is he demuting himself? No, he hasn't.
I'm
use the universal language to... Oh, there he is, he's back.
Oh, that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark. So to let you know what happens, Mark will now read what he has written. Yes.
Well, must I?
And then we choose the next person to carry on with the story. Mr. Leggett, over to you.
Right. There are many ways to kill a man. A knife to the heart, a brick to the back of the nut. Being trampled to death with a Dagenham girl pipers playing "Oh Bondage Up Yours." But in the calm of a secret Mullingavi speakeasy, 3 floors below the post office, access through a secret door behind the Buckfast stand and known only to a select few. Postmistress Senga McFlinge stood alone behind the bar, looking out over the empty floor and facing the door that led upstairs to the post office. Disco lights twirled, and on the loudspeakers, Black Lace played a selection of absolute shite. Senga looked around. The next person through the door might die, but there was no escape. There was only one door in and one door out, and she couldn't leave, not alive. And all she had was a small knife for slicing lemons. She turned to face the line of optics behind her and the sign that said, "What's your poison?"
Very good.
Niall?
Just for the benefit, because Mark being an East Coaster from Dundee, it's Mulgai,
I know, I was winding you up.
and you would never get Buckfast in Mulgai.
No,
You read on a speakeasy.
It's
You-
it's banned. It's outlawed.
it's El Dorado. Right, Douglas, who's next then?
Who's next? Okay, who's next for shaving?
Please, not me again.
Right, I am just giving it a shuffle again. Let's see who is next.
Douglas, see when you say giving it a shuffle, go and make sure that the tea cozy is in the camera shot, because otherwise you're just
Aye.
doing.
Because if you say,
Oh, right,
I'm
I
just
have to
giving
do
it a
that.
shuffle,
Sorry, I have to
and
do
then
this.
re-
Tea
and then reach
cozy,
over
I'm
for the
sorry. Right, sorry, I misunderstood. I thought. Okay, and it is Neil.
Neil.
Knew it was going to be me. I always
Unlucky,
get to
mate.
clean up Mark's mess. Right. To explain, ladies and gentlemen watching at home, I have COVID here, which is why I'm wearing this glorious tribute to an 80s TV show, which was recently rebooted.
You
Oh,
need
no,
one of these,
Detroit
mate.
Tigers cap.
That means, but what TV show is it a reference to?
Magnum.
Well done. That means
Trumpton.
I have to double cap while writing, because you're not seeing what's under this first cap. So, gentlemen, I will bid you farewell and let you speak about me. And I
Okay.
will go and try and make something.
Right. So, Mark, we're asking the question: what is your writing routine?
Mine,
And does it vary?
Yeah, no. I try not to vary my writing routine so it becomes an established habit and it's in order, because I am a very disorganized person. The inside of my mind sounds like a drum kit falling down the stairs. So I have to organize things properly. So normally now my writing habit is to start about 6 in the morning, and I'll write to about 9 o'clock in the morning. And then after that, I'll do the day job. However, depending on the day job, I might go back to it later to do some editing. But I will write in the morning and edit the next day. But I don't, you know what? I don't put too much of a strict routine on what I do. I do what needs to be done. So once I've finished my writing and I've edited it, I have a list of things of where the story is going to go. I'm going to start in the morning, pencil and paper. In fact, one of these books, and I'll just start scribbling away and writing the story. And later on, then I'll dictate it onto the screen using Microsoft Word Dictate, which doesn't really understand the Dundee accent, but it comes up with occasional laughs.
Does
And then
anybody?
just edit it.
Well,
Gavi.
well, if you live in Milngavie, people call it Millingavie deliberately. It's like what's it, Uxter, which is Utoxter. That never made sense to me.
Yes,
Frockheim.
if you live in
No,
Mulgai,
Frockheim
you're
in
allowed.
Fife.
You're allowed to
Beacom.
mispronounce it.
Yes, I know. Yes, mispronunciation is normal. Well, it's where I come from. I tell you what I found though. I've changed something I do in my routine. When I used to finish for the day, that was it. I'd leave it alone. I'd go back the next day and start, right? But what I found works better is I go for it.
You're talking about writing here.
I
aren't
am, yes.
you? Right, that's fine.
What works better is I go for a wee wander. I do that anyway. I sometimes just go for a wee wander. And I go out and I'll go, what comes next, right? So like 10 minutes or 5 minutes of what comes next. There's a disconcerting part to that because it works really well. I'm amazed how often I come up with stuff, but I do tend to blurt it out. So I might be in the co-op or I might be walking across the pedestrian and whatever the idea is, I'll just say it out loud. You'd be surprised how unkind other people are if you blurt out things in their ear that they're not expecting.
And that's why Gordon is no longer invited to funerals.
Yes, I know. I would. Do you know what's worse is that you say that? I swear if I was working in an idea and I was at a funeral, I'd love to say 100% of the time I was focused on the funeral. But there would be a few seconds where I would see something and think, oh,
Oh, and you shout out, he was murdered by a cheese.
Yeah, no, that'd be in real trouble. sorry about that. I'll just leave now. But it is. I do that. I've just found Leslie said it. My wife said it the other day. I just suddenly will say something. I'll go, she could, and then whatever it is, and then I think, oh my God, where did that come from? Old age, I think. I think it's old age. It's just,
Yeah, it'll come to me too.
yes, eventually, somewhere along the time. Right, got a good question here. Comes from Leslie. Leslie, it says, how much time do you actually spend on the very first line of your novel?
Oh,
Very little. Very little.
very little.
Just get anything down.
Yeah,
Just
I'm the same.
get started. Yeah.
Fill the page. You can't edit. I also do mentoring of authors, and I say to them, you can't edit a blank page. Fill the bloody page, and then you can edit it and you go on with it. You can't. You've got to have something down there. So don't worry about the first line. Don't worry about anything. Just get some shit down.
It's when I get to the second line that I have problems.
Don't you mean the second word?
Oh, no. First line is fine because just put any old nonsense down.
No, I just put in the line. I always think the line will come to you at some point. It's important that you grab the reader right from the word go, because when you open the book, the first thing they're going to read, the first page, you got to pull them in, and you've got to make them want to read on. So your first line has to be good, but its job is not to make somebody go, "Oh, what a fantastic first line." It's to make you read the second line, and the second line is to make you read the third line, etc. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be earth-shattering. It just has to work in context.
You've really got this down pat, haven't you? You know, the second line's got to read to the third line. The third line, my goodness, Mark.
Yes.
This isn't actually me. This is my stunt double.
Wait a minute, hang on.
Have
And
you
I
ever
heard,
thought about tutoring?
and the other day I heard the difference between writing a novel and writing poetry is writing a novel is the right words in the right order, and poetry are the best words in the right order. See, I listened to too much Radio 4 because I spent half an hour going, what does that mean? Like literally, like I get what it means and then I don't. I think though, for me, the first line, I always find it's what inspires the rest of the book. I don't mean I spend any time on it, but I can guarantee the first line of every novel I've written has inspired all 80,000 words afterwards. There will be some connection, unintentionally. There's always a connection at the beginning. Sometimes it's just because the first line's rubbish. That means the rest of the book's rubbish, but it's still a connection.
I've got a first line though that I haven't got a book for. So I wrote it, but I can't read the book.
Why?
It goes, and with that, the Mother Superior rolled over, farted, and died. It's the end of the book.
No.
What do you know?
No, see, take a leaf from Steven Spielberg. When he did Raiders of the Lost Ark, he started Raiders of the Lost Ark with the end of the film that never was before. Like
that's because he was copying Bond.
Yeah, and he was copying. It's like when I went to the cinema. When I was wee and went to the cinema, I went to the ABC Minors. Used to watch Flash Gordon, which is the actual original black and white version as is, and they left you a cliffhanger every week. But they played that amazing trick, which was brilliant, which is the next week when you turned up, the ending was not the same. The beginning, they would get him, throw him out a window, and he'd be dead. And next week he'd turn up, and he didn't quite get thrown out the window.
Yeah, there's always something they didn't show you. But sorry, just to say, because of what Mark has just said, it leads us on to a question that we should actually ask at this point that came from Anne Blockswitch. Now, there's a troublemaker. Why is Mark Leggett so obsessed with nuns? Did he lose his virginity while listening to The Sound of Music?
So no, it wasn't the sound.
Let's hear.
It wasn't The Sound of Music. It was The Ride of the Valkyries, played on a big bass drum, with the occasional ding of a triangle at the climactic moments.
Okay, right.
Yes.
What you wanted to know?
Gordon and I sang the Ride of the Valkyries just now. Would that get you all hot and bothered with a memory?
Oh, hey. Oh, shh.
I know it's- And now Mark
Oh,
Leggett will,
singer.
will leave the room for a moment. I will return shortly. You need one of those test cards. Remember the old BBC test cards?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if anybody else watching this is having fun, but we certainly are.
Yeah. Do you know what I say? Do you remember the old BBC test card with the girl playing noughts and crosses with the
Yes.
clown?
Yeah.
I get told, and this traumatized me. I get told when I was very young that I looked like her, or she looked like me, right? And I went back on the internet a few times, and I'm like, it sounds strange. I kind of know it, but I spent God knows how much time traumatized by a test card because it would turn up, and my mum then picked up on it. That kind of looks like you. Oh my God.
Oh,
They actually meant the clown. God.
Well, that's okay. See, that would have worked. I'd have been happy with that. I'd have been happy overall.
go on then. Give us another question.
Oh, right. So another question.
Did we ask? What do you miss most about live events?
Oh, that's right. We didn't ask you, Mark.
Oh, the terror. the panic of going on stage and going, and now, Mark, you go, hello.
I take it back then, dear viewer. It probably wasn't a lavatorial incident with Gordon. It must have been Mark.
It could have been. Right, another question. Ian Rankin versus Agatha Christie in a wrestling match. Pick a winner. That's from Richard Dalgleish.
Oh, I think Agatha Christie, because she was well known for carrying a chib.
Aye. She
would just cut you. She would just go, you fucking.
I'm opening your face, pal. It's a little known fact. It's a little known fact that Agatha Christie was actually from Glasgow.
Was it?
So
It's honestly, I thought she was more of a Morningside. I'm going to open your face, pal.
No, she was Glasgow through and through. You can just tell. You can tell there was that ruthless bit, that you don't get anywhere else but Glasgow. It would have been, when Mr. Rankin, because it's always Mr. Rankin, would approach her. She would say, "Right, pal, come on, come ahead if you think you're hard enough." The bag would be opened, the knitting would be pulled out. She would rifle in there, and out would come the open razor, and she'd say, "Right, I'm opening your face, pal." Her voice would change whenever she was in a fight. Very, very strange thing what she did. She's a very strange woman, Agatha Christie.
Right.
It's known in
Mr.
some
Broadfoot.
areas of Glasgow's as an Agatha.
That's true. Doing an Agatha.
Mars bar. Hey, he's got an Agatha.
Right. Mr. Broadfoot has finished at last. It's now his turn to read. Once he gets himself back on.
Right. Senga, where we left off with Mark. She couldn't leave, not alive, and all she had was a small knife for slicing lemons. She turned to face the line of optics behind her and the sign that said, "What's your poison?" Poison, a simple word that contained wonders. She considered for a moment, gazed strafing across the bottles that glittered behind the bar, each of them old friends that promised fresh adventures. "Why, Mr. Jameson, you want me to dance on the tables and get every man in the place to buy the next 3 rounds? You tease. Mr. Morgans, you want me to sidle up to a good Dundee boy and whisper sweet nothings about nuns and bad habits to him? Scandalous. And Mr. Smirnoff, well, comrade." She made her decision, beckoned to a barmaid who had creases in her face that told Senga she hadn't seen a happier in at least 20 years. "Martini, on the rocks, very cold, very, very dirty." The barmaid grunted, the smell of old smoke and fresh gin in her breath. Senga turned away, not wanting to see the cocktail being cocked up. She heard the door opening, a thin sliver of light creeping across the dance floor, took in the newcomer, made sure to study her shoes. After all, anything else would be rude. She turned away, took her drink from the barmaid, who knew better to ask for money, then back to the newcomer. "Imelda Marcos," she thought as ice chinked against her glass. "Fancy seeing you here."
Right, Mr. Skelton, who's next?
Okay, I'll just have a wee girdle, and then after I've had that, I'll have a wee look in here.
Hey.
Here we go.
Is that joke going to keep going for the whole hour?
Yes.
Well, that's longer than Douglas can go.
Oh dear. Oh dear. And it's me.
Okay, Douglas,
Hey!
off you go.
Good luck, Mr. Skeleton.
Okay, I will just don my writing hat.
Good evening, officer.
You know what? You know what I love most about these events is the fact that it gives readers and fans a glimpse into the dignified nature and the respect that we hold the writing profession in.
I know. Yes. Yes.
I'll just mute myself just now.
Yes.
Oh, please do.
Right. Neil, we're asking the question, how much time, or someone who asked the question, hang on, how much time do you spend on the first line? That came from Cameron.
I don't. It comes to me. I don't plan anything. I don't know whether you've had this question or you've had this
No,
conversation,
we've avoided the planning question so far.
I don't plan at all. So I will have a vague idea in my head and a line or a scene will come to me. And I'll just wait until, obviously it'll be working in the back of my head. And then the line will pop and I'll go and I'll know whether it's right or whether it's wrong. For example, the second Connor book, No Place to Die. I was writing a completely different book. I was 40,000 words in, flying and quite happy. And the first line of No Place to Die came into my head, which was the thing that I swore I'd never do, which was to start an almost sex scene. And it wouldn't leave me alone. And I had to go back and write it, but I knew it was the right first line. And if anybody wants to know what that first line is, I'm not going to read it out. You're going to have to go and find it.
Oh, can we go on Amazon and do look inside to see
You
what
could,
a perv you are?
Because you'll find the first line and you'll deprive me of a sale and my children will go hungry and my dogs will go unfed. But that's fine, Mark. Don't you worry about that.
You should have You should have redacted it. That's probably perfectly possible in Amazon is to remove lines.
You can remove the look inside.
You cannot have it. You can have
a publisher.
You're talking about plan. We have this discussion on a regular basis. Do you plan or do you not plan? Yeah, and we'll exclude Mark from the conversation for reasons that will become obvious later on. But I got asked that recently, and I said I know the answer. The answer is no, I don't. Right, so that's the normal answer. But at the same time, someone then said to us, "But do you ever, when you get stuck, do you have to plan your way out?" And I went, "It's not really the way it works." I says, "But sometimes does something not pop into your head and you think that needs to go in somewhere?" Yeah. And I realized that you gather those things. It's not so much a planning. I heard one today. It was Helen Fields, the author, right, who writes under H.L. Chandler. Have I got that right? Oh, God, that's terrible.
H.S. Chandler.
H.S. Chandler. My apologies, Helen. But she put a Twitter thing up today, which was she was having a set to with her 17-year-old son. And the reason is he had a shiner, black eye, right? And he was denying he'd been in a fight. And she said, well, it was obvious. It was black across the top. It was down the side of his nose. It was a classic shiner. And she knew he wasn't telling the truth until she figured out, actually, his pen, the ink in his pen had burst. And that's what it was, right? And it was like not a shiner. And I went, I could use that. That's those moments in the book where you know someone's lying and you absolutely know they're lying, and then they come up with an excuse so implausible it's plausible.
Yeah.
And I thought I've started to gather them. You just hear them.
But that's the thing with writers. I've said this before. We have magpie minds, even if we're not conscious of it. Yeah. We will be sitting there and we'll see something or we'll hear something, and some part of your brain goes, "Oh, I'm having that." Yeah. And occasionally that'll generate a plot and idea, or you'll be writing a book, you'll be 60,000 words in, and suddenly you'll go, that goes in there. So Stephen King calls it the boys in the basement. The subconscious mind, when you've got an idea in your head and a book, it's always working on it. So you will see things, you will, see random things completely, which will, you'll pick it off the shelf and go, oh, right, okay, that's cool. That'll go in there. And it's not a conscious, well, for me, it's not a conscious thing. And I wouldn't want it to be a conscious thing because it would kill the fun for me.
Yeah, because I don't think I can know what's coming next. That just doesn't work for me because I'd be bored. Exactly.
If I knew how the book ended when I started the book, I wouldn't write the book because the puzzle is already solved.
Right. Okay, over to Mr. Leggett.
You're all heretics and must die by burning. No, I totally get that. And I do that initial. I think what the difference is, you do your voyage of discovery as you write the book. I do the voyage of discovery as I write the plot, and that might be 2 pages, and that'll be the book. So I have all my fun when I'm just just sort of jamming on an idea, just going, well, what could happen? That could happen. And I've got books full of that. I've got books to my left, to my right, and all over the place that are just full of notes and ideas that anything can happen at any time. And I actually write them all down with pens and lots of pencils, and I just riff in a book. And from that will emerge an idea and a plot. And I go, oh, wait, that's quite good. That could fit to that, and that could go interesting. And in about a page or 2 pages tops, I'll write the book and I'll write the entire plot, and I know exactly what's going to happen. So I've had my excitement, and it's been great. It's been a short voyage of discovery. And from that, I will build a book. And the reason I do that is, as I said, I'm completely disorganized, which is ironic because by trade I'm a project manager. And I plan my books so that you have pacing in the book where you want it to be. There's like peaks and troughs throughout the book. There's correct pacing. All the discoveries are in a linear fashion. If there's going to be flashbacks, which I hate, you're going to have to discover them rather than just jump out the story and all that jazz. So I plan it in a technical way so it's a good delivery of the story to the reader. It just makes it more easier for them to read the book. But I totally get writing a book and you have no idea where it's going, because I do that at the start, just a much shorter version.
But how
and you're still going to all
does,
burn as heretics.
how closely does the book that you write cleave to the plan that you've written, or do you?
Oh, good question. Now that varies. I would say for example, a work in progress is called Penitent, and it's a story of an Edinburgh lawyer, and his journey, his book, his story. At the moment, it's probably about 70% of the original 2-pager. That could change to 50% tomorrow if I've got a better idea. So I won't hold to my original plot if I come up with something better, which I will do. But I've got that. I know where the story can go, but it doesn't stop me going off in directions if I think of a better idea. For example, last week in the original plot, I had like 3 scenes of what would be 3 kind of chapters set, and it was actually set in Leith, and I cut them out because I don't need them anymore. I just don't need them, so I'm just moving on. So that, as I wrote it, I thought, I don't need that. It's just going to slow things down. Don't have to do it, boss. Crack on. So at the moment, 70% could go to 50.
I found one of the things was short stories. I struggle more with the novels, right? I've done quite a few published short stories, and what I find is I come up with the idea, and I love the idea, but I can't make it last 2,500 words. I can make an idea run for like 80,000 words. It doesn't matter where it starts, but a short story, you've got to fit it so carefully into the words. And I was talking to someone the other day. I wrote a short story for an anthology in America called EGBDEA, right? So it's the strings on a guitar, EGBDEA. And the idea was it was a serial killer in America that was killing young girls in that order, right? And the reason was, in the past, he had heard someone playing, he saw someone murdered, and someone was in the alley at the time playing a banjo, right? And there's a whole reason why it works together, until someone pointed out a banjo only has 5 strings and they're not EGBDEA, right? Now, that's been out for 4 years, 5 years. Nobody has ever written to me and said, there are only 5 strings in a banjo and you've got the notes wrong. So I'm now beginning to think planning's a waste of time. Like, no one notices. I can keep going for ages. I just think when it comes to, I just like to see it fresh. I just like it fresh on the page. If it makes me jump, or it makes me excited, then I know I've got something right.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I totally get that. And when I write the story from the original plot I've written, I'm the same as I'm writing it, and it's written just like in pencil, just like that. It's as I'm writing it like that, I've got to be excited too.
I know.
I'd be excited too.
Mark,
it's not exciting to me.
Have you ever seen a film called Seven?
Yes.
Right.
I remember that.
You know when they find these diaries? I'm saying nothing more than that.
Do you know, I've always fancied buying diaries and just filling them with one word, right? knowing that when I go, right, when I eventually pass away, I'll have diaries from like 1970, whatever it is, through. Right?
What?
And
Did
every
you say every single word is cheese?
or it'll be something like, I don't know, it'd have to be a better word than that. It could be something like
Gusset.
cucumber, celery, or something, right? But just 50 odd or 60 odd years worth, just because when my estate is, when they go through everything, it'll be like, what? Who would spend 60 years or 70 years writing the word celery over and over every day? I think it would change everybody's perception of you completely.
Probably win the Booker Prize as well.
But that's a good point.
But you know,
and it would achieve my 2,000 words a day.
quite easily.
Yes.
You know what you'd have to do though? On the
What?
last page of the last diary, the last word would have to be "gotcha."
Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah.
The last word and the last one would be cabbage. Like, because then it'd be like, why would he spend 70 years writing the word celery and his last word is cabbage?
Oh, you rebel.
Start right. Other question. What else have we got here? Of all the books you've written, what's your favourite and why?
The one I'm writing. No, honestly, it's the one I'm writing. I've had this before where they think somebody in the audience has said to me, "You remember that book you wrote and that scene in the book?" And I go, "No," because you forget the book you've written because you always concentrate on the book that you're writing at the moment, and your head's only got so much space for a book, and once you've written it, it's gone, and you're full 100% on the one you're actually writing. So I have actually. I know this sounds this sounds terrible, but I picked up for some reason last week, 2 weeks ago, the first book I read, and I opened it at a random page. And I was reading it. I thought, that's quite good. That's terrible thinking that. I thought I quite like that.
Right. We'll carry on with that conversation in a minute. Mr. Skelton has finished his work of genius, shall we say?
Yeah.
And he's about to read it.
Okay. Well, we left our story, dear listener, with Imelda Marcus. She thought as ice chinked against her glass, fancy seeing you here. Imelda tried to pretend that she didn't know who Senga was. She knew she would have been in this bar. That was why she was there. There was a score to settle. They had both gone through the hell of the Sisters of Perpetual Motion School for young ladies and the constantly perplexed, and had come out relatively unscathed. They had been rivals, certainly, and Imelda still burned with anger over the way that Senga stole her thunder in the school's annual interpretive dance and horseshoe throwing contest. She had cheated Imelda had always been convinced. It was time tonight for payback. She caught the barmaid's eye, which had rolled out and was heading her way down the bar. The elderly woman was grateful for its return and asked her what her pleasure was. "I'll have a Buckfast cocktail," said Imelda. She had developed a taste for the cocktail when touring the flesh pots of Milngavie with a Jakey from Dundee. She wondered what had happened to Mark. The last time she'd seen him, he had become Mother Superior of the school. "And pour one for my friend here," she added, her hand already slipping inside the vacuum-sealed bag she carried with her at all times.
Dun, dun, dun. Right, and who is next up?
Excellent. Like, it's only fair, isn't it? Right. It's only fair.
Mark.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Have we got enough time to get me in? All right, all right, 2 minutes. Right, I'm going on mute again, you swines.
Okie doke. Next question up. Who is your favourite crime writer? And if it isn't Denzel Myrick, why not?
Who? Sorry, who is this?
Who is your favourite crime writer?
Do you know, the first name that always comes into my head is Ed McBain, but that's only because I read him from when I was a teenager, and that was the author that made me want to write in this genre.
Yep.
But there are so many since, just none of them here tonight, but there are so many since. Dennis Lehane, Robert Crace. I've enjoyed a lot of James Lee Burke's stuff. I'm frightened to say any more because you're going to obviously miss somebody out.
Yeah. I think if it's all-time favourites, it's more difficult because at the time when I was reading something, I would love it. Like, I would say Franklin W. Dixon, which I know was not one author, but wrote the Hardy Boys series, sticks in my head because there was something about the escapism of the time. And I didn't know it was multiple authors. I wasn't aware it was one of those where different authors wrote under that name. And I spent ages telling people that was my favourite author until I found out he didn't exist. And it's like, oh, right, okay, well, that doesn't really work. But when I was younger, it wasn't so much crime authors. That was the strange thing. I wasn't reading crime. I was reading horror. I was reading science fiction. And yeah, I remember reading Isaac Asimov's I, Robot, and it's brilliant crime fiction. It's real. I mean, it's really clever. The plots are worked out really well, and he's got a real good proposition sitting under the whole thing. This idea of 3 laws of robotics, and when you read the book, I loved it. I just loved the fact that that each time you went into that book, you'd come out thinking, right, there's going to be a twist at the end of this. And he wrote, was it three books of those based around the same premise, and I've still reread them and still love them. Mm-hmm. Neil,
I think it's impossible to say who your one favourite, for me anyway, is, because the books have been a constant throughout my life. I cut my teeth on Stephen King when I got bored of Roald Dahl, and then I kind of just progressed from there. Books in a lot of ways for me are like comfort food. It depends on what you want. If you want something that's going to stretch you, something that's going to make you want to be a better writer, go and pick up a Craig Russell. Because the stuff that he does is just, you're there and he's 4 blocks down the road, round the corner and away. If you want to read the classics and be of that time, go and read Conan Doyle. If you want to read Scottish crime fiction and where it all began, go and pick up on Michael Vanny. Mm-hmm. If you want funny, if you want heartwarming, go and read a Derek Farrell. If you want funny, and I'm not saying this under duress, but Douglas, you owe me a tenner, go and pick up the Dominic Quest books. It depends on what you're in the mood for at the time. One of the things that I like, going back to where we started about the festivals, is you get to meet new writers and you get exposed to new work that you didn't know was there, and you pick stuff up and you enjoy that as much. If I was, I'll always make time for Ian Rankin stuff. I'll always make time for a Lee Child. That's like a Christmas treat. A Lee Child, you know exactly what you're going to get. You pick it up, you read it, you're done. But to pick out one favorite writer, I mean, look at, for example, you were talking about Helen Fields writing his HS Chandler?
Yeah.
Look at Degrees of Guilt. That's a phenomenally good book that takes you somewhere that Helen wouldn't normally take you and addresses an important issue. Does that make her my favorite writer? No, it makes her one of my favorite writers, but I've got a whole library literally there of my favorite writers.
What Neil says is right. I mean, you can't pick one out because there's so many good Scottish writers, so many good English, so many good American writers, Scandi writers, from all over the world. So you can't. I'm reading some non-fiction at the moment from New Zealand for a prize, and just some incredible work getting done there. So it's difficult, but for the love of God, will somebody please tell me who Denzel Myrick is? I mean, I just who is this? Is that a made-up name or what?
Yes, it's an anagram. We just haven't figured out what of yet.
No, seriously, Denzel's in it. Denzel, Ian Rankin, Lynn Anderson, Michael J. Malone, Carol Ramsey, Teresa Talbot. All of these writers are exceptionally good, and if you haven't read any of them, you really should.
I tell you what I've got though is Guilty Secrets. I talk about this book a lot. There's a book by 2 authors, sci-fi book by Effinger and Doswa, which is called Nightmare Blue, which was written way back in the late 70s, early 80s. And it's got the weirdest storyline on the planet. It's a bunch of aliens land on Earth with a drug that's instantly addictive. One injection and you're addicted for life. If you don't keep getting it, you die. And what they decide to do is inject the world leaders with it, because that way they're going to take over the world. and the world is saved by a German detective who is a bit of an alcoholic and a bit of a wash-up, and what you can basically describe as an octopus with 12 legs, right? Which is one of the slaves that's an alien that comes down with the other aliens, right? And they have to get together to save the world, right? I have read that book 6 times, right? Sounds ridiculous. I said it I was on one of the Facebook groups recently, and someone asked the question, "What's your guilty secret?" And I said that, and I got a note back from this guy. I've just bought it. I didn't even know it was still available. I swear, I thought the thing must be out. He got it, or I don't know where he got it from. I thought, oh my God, he's going to read this and then get back in touch with me and say, "What in the heck? You liked it?" I was so pleased. I said, I love that. I don't know what it is about the book. It's a crime book, but it is so weird. I cannot stop. And I've still got it next to my bed in case I want to go back to it. It's just ridiculous. It just shows you.
Yeah.
Right,
But then the thing
What
is,
you got?
Gordon, I'm sorry, but that was not fiction. That was actually non-fiction.
That's true. That's right. Yes, I forgot about that period in my life.
Yeah, it was actually true. It did happen.
It did go ahead. So I was going to ask you, what's the next question up? Who, in your opinion, is the best writer in the group?
Ooh,
That comes from
the
Linda
tea
Wright.
cozy. Without a doubt.
Well, I don't know because I don't read these guys. I've no idea whether they're any good or not.
I actually find what I find funny is reading in advance, because I remember reading your new book, when I was reading The Blood Is Still way before it came out. By the time it came out, people were saying, "Have you read Douglas's book?" And I went, "No," because it was so long ago. And I said, "What's it about?" And they started telling me. I went, "That sounds dead familiar. Hang on, maybe I have read it." Oh. Mr. Leggett is ready to read. So it is him up next to do what he is doing.
I'm ready. Not sure you are, but I am. Right. Let me just find out where we were. That's no the one. Hold on. Give me a moment. It's all dates, lads. 2019.
All right, Mark. We'll just talk among ourselves. It's okay.
Yeah, no. I'm just.
We're
having
used
a
to ignoring
moment
you
here.
anyway.
Here we go. Right. So we left with Douglas. Oh, no, down to the bottom. And here we go. It was time tonight for payback. She caught the barmaid's eye, which had rolled out and was heading down the bar. The elderly woman was grateful for its return and asked her what her pleasure was. "I'll have a Buckfast cocktail," said Imelda. She developed a taste for the cocktail when touring the flesh pots of Mulgai with a Jakey from Dundee. She wondered what had happened to Mark. The last time she had seen him, he'd become Mother Superior of the school. "And pour one for my friend here," she added, her hand already slipping inside the vacuum-sealed bag she carried with her at all times. She fumbled around inside, discarding the enamelled icon of the blessed Jimmy Shand, the lucky rabbit's foot, the skeleton of the unlucky rabbit, several jubes, a carjack, a welder's helmet, and a bejewelled codpiece of her first love, whose name will go unmentioned, as she couldn't mind, apart from the smell of jute, and then brought out a small glass bottle of holy water, given to her by Sister Obligata of Perpetual Succor, to be only used in the last resort. The last resort was actually doing the water on the Rothsay, but that didn't count. The liquid was cold to the touch, but she knew it would burn like fire.
Very good. Right, I think we'll get time for one more, and then that'll be us.
Right, here we go. Here we go. Who will it be? Who will it be?
God got me.
Round and round it goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. And it is. Mark, no.
Right. So I will take this to conclusion, he says. Maybe not, but I'll try. Over to you, lads. Go find a question.
Have you got advertising on your hat?
Look at the professional, eh? Look at that.
That's slick. Well, when I say slick, that's not really what I mean.
Right. Questions. In fact, Mark, you missed this one. To all 4 writers, which, in your opinion, is the best writer in the group, excluding yourself? You don't need to answer because I know it's me. And we've
don't
asked that
know.
one as well. And we've asked
don't
that one as
know.
well.
What did you all say? I have no idea.
The tea cozy, Mark. It's obviously the tea cozy.
It's the tea cozy. You didn't think I read your books, did you?
Who's
Joking aside, though, right? Everyone here does something different.
Yeah.
Douglas, for example,
You're
joking
talking
aside,
about writing, aren't you? Yeah. This is not the medium for any sort of confessions from us, Neil. I hope you are talking about writing.
well, I was, but if you want me to spill your dirty secrets about your inability to order drinks in Bristol, I can do that. No, Douglas has a brevity and a gift for one-liners I wish I had. Gordon can put you in a place, with the Morgan Cry books, which is immersive. You do international stuff and attention to detail, and the book that you're writing now, Penitent Mark, is just sensational. It brings Edinburgh to life as a character in a way I've not seen. So I think everybody's got different strengths as writers. We're different writers. You could plonk four of us down in a location, and four of us would give you four different descriptions of that location.
That's true.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah,
it's
you
a good
can't.
because I don't necessarily have a favourite writer. Apart, there might be a couple of writers who inspire me, but I don't have to say a favourite writer because a good book's a good book.
Exactly.
You can't judge our books by what we do in this show.
Thank God.
Because this is this is a curious hybrid of a concept that we have with the Four Blokes, and that it is comedy, it is it is entertainment. We do set out to make people laugh or groan, in my case, but that's taken back to the confessions. But the serious part is that we will talk about writing, we will talk about anything and related to that when we have to.
Aye, exactly that.
Here's a question. If you didn't write crime, I don't know who put this forward. If you didn't write crime, what genre would you like to write, and what would the book be about?
Right, I'll go for that one. I write crime, but I have written international crime. At the moment, I'm writing psychological crime, but I've also written dystopian fantasy, which I really like. So there isn't really a crime aspect to that dystopian fantasy. It's more of an adventure and a journey. But yeah, I'd go for that. But you know what? I think the hardest gig in it to do is romance. Well-written romance is a real professional job, and I take my hat off to anybody who can write that because it's really tough to write. But there's nothing I wouldn't write if I thought I had an idea for it. I'd just go for it.
Yeah.
Dystopian fantasy, or real life, as we like to call it now.
Come on, Douglas, what about you? I mean, you've done non-fiction, fiction.
Done non-fiction. I've done true crime. I've done history. So I've done that. I think, again, the answer that I give, because this has been asked before, is I think I have actually recently stepped out, as you know, Neil, stepped out of the comfort zone of crime and done something different. Whether it will see the light of day, we don't know, but I have done something. But I would like to write a Western.
Interesting.
I'm heavily influenced in many ways by Westerns. I always said the Davy McCall books, the books, the first four novels that I wrote, were Westerns that were set in Glasgow, in the Glasgow underworld. And there's a lot of Western tropes, even in the Rebecca Connolly books. There's a feel for that. So I think that's what I would like. But as I say, I have tried something different, which is historical, an historical adventure, thriller, crime sort of thing. But as I say, that might never see the light of day.
Which would be a crime in itself if it didn't, because it is really good.
Oh, it's bloody good. Bloody good. Neil, what about you?
I have a promise to keep. So...
Oh, not the erotic fiction again, for goodness sake.
Mate, it's not a promise. It's not a promise, it's a court order. Just tell it what it is, all right?
When I got started out, when I was very, very young, I started reading Stephen King. And when I first started writing, it was horror stories that I wrote, short horror stories. And my oldest, closest friend is a guy called Joe, who is a graphic designer. And I said, you know, we made a deal when the arrogance of youth was I'd write the book and he'd do the covers for me. And with my first series with the Doug and Susie books, that's exactly what happened. Joe designed the covers, did the covers. But what we used to do when we were growing up was I used to write short horror stories, see if I could scare Joe. And I knew I'd got it working the night that Joe ran from my house back home, dodging from lamppost to lamppost because he didn't want to go into the dark. But I promised Joe that I would write him a horror story.
Excellent,
So
mate.
when I get the time, I owe him a proper horror novel.
Aye.
So that's what I'll do.
But what you're not saying is that it wasn't the story that scared him, it was because you took your hood off.
The big reveal moment. Yeah.
Like Kenny in South Park, he always had this hood when he was a wee boy, and he took it off. That was Kenny, wasn't it? Or am I wrong?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Probably.
Or is it
Think so.
Cartman that wears the hood? I can't remember.
Tell you what, talking about favourite books, things I can't do, and this is when you read books and you have to give your opinion. I could not be a book reviewer. I just, that seems so alien to me. I mean, I know it's a good job for people, and it's for readers, it's an excellent thing for someone to review a book and say, you might be interested in this book because of this, or I didn't think the book was that good because of this. I didn't think the book was good because of this bit. I don't really like, because a book is so it's so subjective reading any book that I don't think I could ever be a book reviewer. So giving my opinion on someone's writing, I'm really not comfortable with that.
I have to disagree with you there, because I think you could, because you do editing and you do mentoring, and that's basically what a review is.
That's true, but this is not a finished product. So the finished product is as the writer wants it to be, and that's their vision. So before you get there, I am I'm no backward and coming forward, telling people how they should shape their book and how the techniques that they should use to make it happen and what they could possibly do. But once it's done, that's the writer's vision. And I'm not their judge.
The thing is, for me, no, I'm not. If I read a book, I'm not judging. Unless I'm editing it, I'm not passing judgment. And even when I'm editing, I'm not really passing judgment. I'm saying, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Maybe you want to look at this.
Oh, I'm the same. I would couch it in terms of you may want to consider, rather than this is rubbish, don't do it, do that.
What I get is that if I pick up a book that I seriously enjoy, I get excited by that as a reader. As somebody who loves the written word, I get excited by that. And I want to tell people about that.
Yeah.
The story that I tell is that when I was, Craig Russell won the Bloody Scotland Book of the Year award back in, was it 2016 he won it for The Ghosts of Altona?
Could be, yeah.
And I'd been nominated the year before and I didn't win it. And I don't know whether it was an act of complete sadism or just some genius marketing ploy, but my local bookshop in Dunfermline said, Neil, you didn't win it last year. He won it this year. He's from Dunfermline. Do you want to interview him? All right, you bastards. I'll interview the guy who beat me to the punch. That's fine. And I picked up this book, The Ghosts of Altona, and started reading it. And, I got to the 4th chapter and I thought, all right, okay, this boy's got the stones. 5th chapter, Jesus, where are we going here? 10th chapter, I've been paddling in the shallow end all this time. And I wanted to tell people about this book because I enjoyed it so much. So, reviewing, not so much. Sharing my enthusiasm for a great work of fiction. Yeah, I can do that.
That's true. If you see a book and you read a book and you go, wow, what a fantastic book.
People need to enjoy this.
You want to tell people about it. And one thing I always recommend is throw your ego out the window. It's always going to get in your way. If you see a great book, tell people, that's a great book. Love it. Go for it.
And speaking of throwing egos out of windows,
Yeah,
Gordon has the hat off. Gordon's got to bring this puppy home.
I've got to finish this somehow. So
good luck and
Best of
God
luck,
bless.
boy.
Actually, before Gordon starts, Mark, could you do me a favour?
Yes, mate.
Could you put your tea cozy on and give him a blessing? Because I think he's going to need it.
Actually,
Dominic Patri, Fili,
it'll work better. If I do it this way, it'll work better. So I'll just make it up.
Actually, it might work better if we all just go like that.
Right. So wait a minute. So the last resort was actually doing the watering, Rossi, but didn't count. The liquid was cold to the touch, but she knew it would burn like fire. She looked at Senga with eyes that were watering. She knew that her G-string had been a tad small when she'd bought it. Senga stood back as she recognised the danger she was in. But she was a trained black belt in the throwing of the mince and had been known to chuck a pound of ground beef over a mile after a particularly heavy session on the whiskey. She leapt to one side as Imelda raised the ice cube. This confused Senga, as she'd seen many things in her bar. Deadly assault with an ice cube was not one of them, at least not in the last month or two. Imelda also hesitated, as she too hadn't quite figured out the plot. After all, a poisoned ice cube was supposed to be ingested. In desperation, she threw it at Senga, hoping that her skills from the local fair involving getting the wee ball in the bucket to win a teddy would win the day. But she missed, and missed badly. The ice cube ricocheted off the mirror at the back, smacked Senga on the arse, bounced off the puggy, 2 tables and a light fitting before striking Imelda's left hand, a hand that was holding the holy water. The top flew off and the water poured onto Imelda and she screamed. Oh, why hadn't she worn the ruby slippers? Why the green ones that Wicked Witch of the West had lost after the shooting of Wizard of Oz had finished? Because she was not Imelda Marcos. She was called Melting Marcos. And the last words from her mouth as she melted into a puddle were, oh, you cursed brat, look what you've done. I'm melting, melting. Oh, what a world, what a world. Who would have thought a good little girl like you could destroy my beautiful wickedness? Oh, look out, look out. I'm going, I'm going. Woo! And there you have the end of a very serious crime story. So we'll have to say our goodbyes, otherwise we're going to get thrown off Zoom and thrown off of the fete. So can I have a big thanks for what you call it, Southside Fringe Festival for having us in the first place. Can also thank Karina and the people behind the scenes for all the work they've done to get the festival up and running in such turgid times. It's been brilliant. So to say goodbye, my name is Gordon Brown.
My name is Douglas Skelton.
My name is Mark Leggett.
And my name is Neil Broadfoot.
And if you want to know some more about us, you can find us at FBlokes on Twitter, or if you look up us on Facebook and 4 Blokes Searching, and the same 4blokesearching.com. We are the 4 Blokes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Cheers.